Welcome to my review for The Prowler, which came out in 1981. I'd barely heard of this film until about a year ago, but I've heard quite a few people say that it's really good, so I decided to give it a try, and here I am doing a review for it in the aftermath. Storyline-wise, I'd say it's a cross between Black Christmas '74 and the original My Bloody Valentine. Black Christmas because the majority of the film is set in and around a sorority house or student dormitory, and My Bloody Valentine because the killer in this doesn't really get going until the town he lives in starts to celebrate something which it hasn't celebrated in many, many years, in this case, a graduation day. Now, the film was directed by Joseph Zito, who went on to do Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and I could easily believe that the same guy did both of these movies because they both have the same kind of no-nonsense, dark and serious tone. Before we get into it, let me just show you my copy of the movie. No, I'm not going crazy. That is what The Prowler looks like in Region B. It has a completely different title. I don't know why, but the Americans have definitely got it right with this one because The Prowler is a much better title. That's why I've put it on my thumbnail. I mean, calling it The Prowler, it just gives the film so much more menace. It gives you an image of somebody skulking around in the shadows like Michael Myers, and by just having that one word, Prowler, it's you know, it's nice and sharp like Halloween. Calling it Rosemary's Killer makes it sound like some really tame daytime thriller that would be on at the same time as something like Perry Mason, and there'd be no violence or profanity in it. So at some point I would like to get a Region A copy of this film, you know, one that is actually called The Prowler, but I'll probably have to get a multi-region player to do it. It's on my bucket list. I need to get that done, don't I? Another problem with this is the fact that it came brand new with a shrink wrapper on it, and yet I still have problems playing the film at various points. It must be a dodgy disc. At least twice the film skipped scenes. The first time early on is when there's this middle-aged guy talking to some of the students at a party, and then it skipped to the next scene. I don't know if I missed any important dialogue there. Instinctively, possibly not, but the second time this happened was later in the film, so I'm a bit more wary because more important stuff tends to happen in the second half of a movie. Now, the second time, there were a couple of characters, a couple of teens, not big characters. I don't think they'd been in the movie that much up until that point, but they go downstairs into a basement and they start making out on a mattress or on the floor. And then, sadly, my DVD then skipped to the next scene. So at the time, I thought, have I missed a couple of kills there? Because these characters didn't pop up again, I don't think. I went on YouTube after I'd watched the movie and typed in The Prowler all kills just to see if there were any kills on there, which I'd not seen. I did find a video to watch and there weren't any kills that I'd missed. So I don't know, what was the point of that scene of the kids going down into the basement or wherever it is? I mean, did the Prowler just scare them or something and then it switched to the next bit? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what happened in that scene because I totally missed it. But I think I missed just two scenes because of my dodgy disc. But yeah, I mean, I might as well just throw this in the bin now because it's not a great copy and I'm going to have to get a better one at some point. So let's get into the many things that I like about this film, and let's start with the kills because ever since I saw this film the other night, I've been dying to do my review just so I can talk a little bit about the kills. They are phenomenal in this film. Tom Savini is the maestro behind most of the magic. Right from the moment that the Prowler kills Rosemary with the pitchfork, I thought to myself, oh God, the kills in this film are going to be awesome, and I wasn't disappointed. There's so much good work that goes on with the practical effects. The guy who gets killed with the machete in his head, I mean, it looks so real, and then after a while his eyes turn white and it's just brilliant. The pitchfork kill in the shower, amazing. Again, it looks real. The girl in the swimming pool, I'm not going to mention them all, but this will be the last one, but this girl under the water, throat slit, and you can just see the blood slowly floating out, but it genuinely looks like it's a dead body under the water. And the camera lingers on it so long because Savini and his crew have got the confidence that you're not going to spot any blemishes in their work, no matter how long you look at this stuff. And it's the same for the other kills as well. If the work wasn't up to snuff, if it was a little bit shoddy, then the camera would probably cut away quicker. But this film is worth watching just for the kills. They are amazing. There's not that many of them. I think maybe 6 or 7 in the film as a whole, but They're all brilliant, right from the start up to the very end. The killer himself is great as well. I really like the Prowler and his costume. This is the sort of story where it gets revealed who it is under there in the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes. Now, I've seen a lot of slasher films that do the reveal of a killer well, and some that don't do it well. So a couple of examples that don't do it well, but in different ways, would be, firstly, Friday the 13th, the original. And I say that because the film doesn't really play fair, that one. We don't get to see Pamela Voorhees at any point up until the moment where it is revealed she's been behind all the murders. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got something like My Bloody Valentine, second mention for that film today, where you see so much of the killer outside of his costume that by the time it's revealed it's him, well, this is how it was for me anyway. I was actually disappointed it was him because I'd gotten to know the character so much. The Prowler strikes a nice balance between those two extremes. The person who it turns out to be is someone that you have seen, but not that much that you would have gotten to know them and gotten to like them. So I was quite satisfied with who the Prowler turned out to be, and just the character as a whole as a killer was just brilliant. His costume is just really intimidating from the moment you see it. You know what it reminds me of? The costume from My Bloody Valentine. How many times have I compared this film to My Bloody Valentine today? But those two films just feel very spiritually close. They've got so many similarities. They even came out in the same year. Quality-wise, I don't think they're that far apart. I like the way that Joseph Zito puts all these little insert cuts of, you get to see the Prowler like take a knife out of his scabbard, but it's just a quick 2-second thing, and then you get to see his face kind of twitch because he's heard the protagonists in the next room or something. You get all these little insert shots with the Prowler throughout the movie. There's just enough of them that you can really admire the costume and the presence of the killer, but not so many that he would start to lose his menace. It's really good. The atmosphere in the film is very good as well. There's a lot of suspense. There comes a point in the story where the main character, Pam, has to leave the party, which is sort of ever present throughout the movie, and go back to her dormitory where she lives. But we know the Prowler's there, and yet at the same time, I thought to myself when I first watched this, well, it's still quite early in the movie, she's probably not going to bump into him, but she actually does, and we get embroiled in this terrific chase sequence where she desperately tries to get out of the dormitory. But this place looks the same on every floor. I mean, it's easy to believe that all the doors and the rooms are totally similar. I've lived in a place like this myself when I went to university, and it wasn't uncommon to come back from the bar after a night out and end up on the wrong floor and you can't find your room and you're sort of looking around like, 19B, and that's on days when I'm not being chased by a serial killer. So this feels like a good location for the Prowler to be very effective in. There are a couple of moments where you can tell that Pam is a little bit confused by the layout of the building. It's just a great chase. And as soon as this has happened, for the rest of the film, it never lets up. Pam and her sort of on-off boyfriend, Mark, they're just being pursued throughout the surrounding neighborhood for the rest of the duration. There's no transitions to the following day or anything like that. The whole story plays out on this one same night. The ending's very good as well. I won't go into exactly what happens, but there's a great head explosion. Funnily enough, Tom Savini also did a head explosion in Maniac in the exact same year, so he was very fond of his head explosions around about that time. And then there's one more sort of little sting in the tail moment at the end where Pam looks into the showers and finds some dead bodies and one of them comes alive. I think we're meant to think that this is an hallucination or a dream, but I think it would be quite cool if it had actually been one of the Prowler's victims still alive and just groping for her before he dies. That would have been really creepy. And it's not unheard of for people who suffer great trauma to somehow not quite die as quickly as you think they should do. I mean, this guy in the shower, he's taken a machete through his skull. He should be dead, but weird things happen. I read a story about this guy who fell 100 floors off a building once, and through some trick of, catching the right wind current or something, he was able to basically land with hardly any broken bones. It's weird, but I think it's meant to be a dream sequence anyway. So that just about brings me to the end of my positives. I do have a couple of negatives. One really big one, which drags the film down a little bit. And I've got another negative, which is probably just me talking shit, but I'm going to say it anyway. But firstly, the big problem with the movie is probably the characterization. There's not really much in this film in terms of characters. Pam and Mark, the two leads, are okay. I think Mark's actually probably the best character in the film, just about. So the two leads are okay, but all the supporting characters are just paper thin. I mean, I can picture them in my head for their death scenes, and that's about it. In terms of any of their dialogue or anything they do, there's just nothing there. And I don't think the film can use its running time as an excuse, because I've seen plenty of films of similar length whose characters have managed to entertain me far more than the characters in this film. So that's a little bit of a shame. The other thing I'll say is that even though the film is really competently made, really efficiently executed, I do think it kind of lacks that little bit of movie magic which could have taken it from being very good into truly excellent. And I'm not entirely sure what I mean here. It could be the characters, but I just think this film does lack that little X factor, that kind of unquantifiable something which could have pushed it into the big leagues of great slashers like Halloween and The Burning. I mean, I watched this and I really admire it, I respect it. The kills left me gobsmacked, but it didn't move me emotionally. I mean, I didn't wake up the next day and start thinking about this cool new movie I'd watched the night before. It was just kind of like a couple of days later, I thought to myself, oh, I watched The Prowler a couple of nights ago. I'm going to have to start planning that review. But this was only my first watch, and a couple of the scenes were missing, as I've already explained. So it'll be interesting to me to see how my relationship with this film develops in the future. Hopefully I'll get a proper copy, because I definitely see this being on my shelf going forward. It is that good. I definitely recommend it if you're into these sorts of movies. So there we are. Let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score we have for Rosemary's Killer. No, it's The Prowler. Definitely The Prowler. So we've got a few axes in here. Let's see exactly how many we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 3.5. That's a really good score. 3.5 bloody axes out of 5 for The Prowler. So there we go. If you've not seen that, then definitely make an effort to see it, because it's an extremely good slasher film from 1981. I'll be back very soon with another review. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.